All right. So creating the Intangible Enterprise. Tell me, why'd you write the book?
So, writing a book is like so painful, and I've got the memory of a goldfish. So I forgot it's my third book, and I've like forgot what the pain and suffering is. So I actually reflected on this, like, why? What is wrong with me? Like, why am I doing this? And what I realized is every book I've written has been when I've been out and about with people in a market, and they have kind of severe pain, right? There's a pain, and there's a change. When I wrote my startup book, that was at a time where startups were grinding, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna like drink Soylent and I can code more. It was like this grind or die mentality. I was like,
Right.
oh, that's terrible, because you're not gonna grind. You're gonna grind and you are gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. So that was kind of my inspiration for writing the book. And this book, I got inspired because I was out in the market talking about AI and what it could bring. And I was at one event, and literally, like, three large men approached me and they said, "Here's what's wrong with you technology people. You are killing our future, your children's future. Like, how dare you?" And Ian, who works for me, was like, "Hey, I don't get paid hazard pay. Like, I'm not
Right.
your bodyguard."
Right.
And I was just like, "This isn't." I was like, "But why were they getting so upset? Right? Why were they just like mad at me?" And I was like, "Because they're afraid." And I started seeing a pattern of fear, and I was like, "Okay, people are very afraid of this thing, and they're focused on job loss and all the negative aspects, which there are. There are some potential negative aspects to AI, and there will be some unintended consequences that will be negative, and some will be positive. But I saw that pain and suffering, and I was like, let me take a positive view of this. And also, I would do this thing on stage, like, well, I mean, everything's gonna be fine, and people would be like, you can't just say things are gonna be fine.
Mm,
You're not allowed to just say things. Like,
right.
how are we gonna be fine? Tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I should be telling my kids. Right? Those types of questions
Sure.
kept popping up, and I realized like people, I called my publisher up and I was like, go do some research. What are people writing about in AI? And it turned out like there's some really good doom and gloom stuff, and there was some technical stuff, but for those of us that maybe aren't writing code and aren't building AI things and are really going to become power users of AI, how do we like diminish the fear? Like what's the playbook? What should I do? If you do believe AI is the next big super cycle, next big thing, that's fantastic. But what do I do as a civilian, not as a Silicon Valley coder
Hmm.
or VC? What should I go do? And so that's what really drove me to write the book, because it is a lot of
Yeah.
energy to write a book. It's not
It
simple.
seems like for the business leader, CEO, you
100%.
should read it.
Yeah. I would say if you're a business leader and you need a framework of how to approach AI, and how it's going to transform your business for the next 10, 20, 100 years, this is the book to read. And I think it's one of these, it's not into the deep of, I get into some of the technology stuff, but it's not a
Yeah.
technologist book. It's a business book.
Yeah. Business book. So, in going through this, you talk a little bit about skilling up and how we as humans need to arrive in contact with AI and technology and all this revolution that's happening. What do you think the main points in a tease? I guess they got to get the
Yeah.
book to really go through this. And I imagine you wrote that because you can't take everybody through this at scale and you start seeing repetitive questions.
Right.
But what's the skill up vision that you have for these business leaders that want to build healthy organizations?
Yeah, I think one is having really more of a product strategy. So if you're a law firm, I can bill by the hour. If I'm an accounting firm, I can bill by the hour. Well, with AI, you're going to be billing a lot less hours, right? So how do you recreate your business model in more of a product strategy? And one of the points I hit about is how do you create asymmetric business models? There's so many businesses where it's hour worked, hour paid, hour billed. And the only way you scale a law firm is by hiring more people. And so how do you shift that thinking into more asymmetric business models where maybe as a law firm you charge per incident? Hey, we charge $2,500 per question. And and that's what we do, right? It's not by the hour. And so therefore you might be only spending an hour or 30 minutes or 10 minutes, but you're getting 2,500 bucks.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do a subscription model where for 10 grand a month, I'm your general counsel as much as you need me. But because I'm using AI, I have infinite scale.
Right.
So I think it's really the reinvention of business models is really the core focus of it. I think there's also, I do hit on some cultural things, which is, I think if you want to build what I call the monolithic organization, i.e. the next generation GE, where job descriptions look more like instructions to a robot than a person, sure, AI will help you optimize, and in your term you'll make a ton of money, but in the long term you'll probably lose. Whereas an intangible organization is really rooted in this idea of like creativity, diversity. So now instead of hiring someone with to do accounting work that has to be a great accountant, maybe you don't because AI is doing most of the accounting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you hire someone because culturally they're going to add a certain energy to the company.
Yeah.
They're going to add a certain, they come from a different path that everyone's traveled. If you hire people in an engineering firm and everybody's an engineer, they all went to the same schools, they probably have the same hobbies. It's
Study the same things.
Same, right? And so I think one area that I call it the kind of the cultural alchemy. This now gives us an opportunity to hire people that maybe were not on this standard path. They came from a different spot, but
Sure.
they add something to the organization that's very different from a creativity perspective and an energy perspective. I mean, I think, how you have people on your team, not everybody's just going to be good at their job. Some people are going to be really good at their job, and they add an extra bite of energy to the team that keeps everybody going.
Yeah, I think AI will be a great thing for humanity, and to your point, things will change, and so it makes sense to get the book, kind of have a good business mindset around not necessarily just the technical, but as a business how I should be thinking through this and preparing my teams and moving through it.
100%. And part of it is I really talk about, hey, we've been here before. So when spreadsheets first came out, there was 123. There's Quattro Pro, there was VisiCalc, pre-Excel and spreadsheets. When spreadsheets came out, and the PC came out and spreadsheets came out, it was the death of accounting. Why would you ever need an accountant?
Mm-hmm.
This software, and it was interesting. I've heard stories where accountants would actually try to find flaws in the math, you can't believe what's in that black box.
Yeah.
Let me show you.
Formula behind it.
They would try to mess up formulas and things.
That's
right?
interesting.
But there was this whole idea. And so at that time, there was a little company called Arthur Andersen, public accounting firm. They said, well, instead of resisting spreadsheets, and then next came accounting software, right? Like SAP and all these things. Let's just help our customers out. Let's help them deploy spreadsheets. We'll become great at spreadsheets. We'll teach them how to use them. We'll optimize them. When accounting software came out, we'll help them implement it. And they had a very creative view of it, of just being accountants. We're going to actually be counsel. And that little company went from Arthur Andersen. They spun out a company called Andersen Consulting. That company is now a little company called Accenture, the largest professional services company in the world. And so it can be done. I mean, there is a track record of these disruptions in business that come along. I think AI is going to be much more deep, I would like to say it's going to be a lot more impactful than spreadsheets, but I'll tell you what, I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets. You probably do too. Spreadsheets are probably more pervasive in my life.
In a lot of ways, they give me a lot of comfort, and so, but when they can talk to other things, that's always valuable.
Can you imagine a life without spreadsheets?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So I think we're going to be in the same place with AI, right? And I think, but I use that as an example to say hey, we've been here before. This isn't new. We just got to, knuckle up and come up with some ideas and move forward.
And we were all fine. kpready.co, where did we get the book?
It's available on Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. So you just look up Creating the Intangible Organization, Intagible Enterprise, or you look up KP Reddy, and you should be able to find it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to not only getting this to our audience, but also, is there a talk that you have with this, Doug? Do you pair this with a leadership talk, either in keynote form or in workshop?
No, I do keynotes. I do a good amount of keynotes. And then we started doing executive workshops and briefings. So I come in for a day with your executive team and really kind of just get them accelerated. And I think it's one of these workshops where there's lots of action items for people to go execute on and make a difference tomorrow versus, here's 10 slides and go figure it out.
Right.
I try to give people highly actionable things, and then we do offer a lot of training around AI training. And what's interesting, I looked at AI training, and my first reaction was, it's like teaching people how to use the internet.
Sure.
But what I found out with corporates, they really want their teams trained up, but they want it done in a very disciplined way. So they know what people know, and they know what whatever the issues there might be around security and proprietary information, like to help them understand how to use it well. Whereas early days of internet, everybody was downloading a virus because they didn't know, like, don't click on that.
Right.
So there's a little bit, don't click on that aspect to AI. So we do a lot of training and different things around that.
Yeah.
I love giving keynotes, and especially to highly traditional industries that, like I have construction companies telling me, like, AI is not going to build buildings. I'm like, actually, now that robots have AI and robots have situational
Probably
awareness,
flying planes.
they are going to be building buildings.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Well, it's great having you on. For those that want to get the book, Amazon.com.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Good to see you.